Hi everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to Through Their Eyes, Past and Present. We are standing in the historic Farnsworth House dining room right now. And thank you, Mr. Schultz, for giving us this opportunity. He is the owner of the Farnsworth House. So step back in time with me as we go back to Cornelia Hancock. You may not know much about her, but today you will learn through her eyes. And no better person to share this with us than a descendant of Cornelia Hancock, Viola Smithcors.
Thank you. Cornelia was born in February 1840. When the war started, she was 20 years old. She was very upset that her brother was going off and she could not go with him. But as the war went on, she received letters from him. He was in the 12th New Jersey Regiment, and she was saddened by some of the news of friends in the neighborhood passing, and her desire to be there with the soldiers even grew stronger. She had no education in nursing, just a sister concerned about her family, her brother. And as the war went on, she heard of a battle in Gettysburg. Her brother-in-law sent her a carriage, knowing that she would want to go because her brother was there. And so she got in the carriage with her brother-in-law, Dr. Frederick Child, her sister's husband, Elizabeth, and went to Gettysburg, was going to go to Gettysburg. She was ready to get on the train, and Dorothea Dix, who was the superintendent of the nursing corps, saw her and said, "Oh no, you can't go. You're too young and too pretty." Well, at the time, of course, she was 23 and rather attractive, if I may say so myself. And she was eager to get on the train. So she decided that when Mrs. Dix turned her head, she would sneak on behind her brother-in-law, and so she did. Well, by the time they got to Gettysburg and arrived, it was 3 days into the battle. There were so many people, soldiers, who were laying around. They didn't care what age you were or what you looked like, because they needed help for these soldiers. And she immediately went to work with helping them, gathering food, getting bandages. Whatever she could do, that's what Cornelia did. As the time went on, she had one evening where she could sit down and relax and write a letter home. And she wrote to her sister Elizabeth. In the letter, she said, "I don't think I will ever see anything as devastating and horrid as this in the rest of my life. I am saddened by the soldiers who are lying here in pain, and I have nothing to help them with. I have been getting them food where I can. I went into town and I found some bread and some milk, and I softened the bread for those who could eat it. But it is a very sad state here. I'm glad I'm here, but at times I think I wish I were at home. I don't think I've slept a full night since I've been here, hearing the soldiers moaning and crying. It's very saddening. All my love, Cornelia." As the time went on, Cornelia created many letters home to her family, asking for supplies. She was a Quaker girl, and they had the Friends meeting hall that would gather, and a lot of the people in the town would send her fabric, wool socks that they had knitted or crocheted, and she would receive supplies from home. But food was one of the harder things that she had to find for the soldiers. Cornelia stayed in Gettysburg as long as the soldiers were here. She was at Camp Letterman, which was at the outside of Gettysburg. They had set it up. In town, she worked at the Lutheran church and took care of the soldiers there. Once the camps were breaking up out on the battlefield, They moved a lot of them to there and then to Camp Letterman. The stench from the soldiers being wounded, you could smell it all the way to Delaware. That's how bad it was. And it was something you had to get used to, and she did. She went on to go out to Washington, D.C., and helped work with the Afro-American families that were slaves that were running away from their families and wanted to find refuge, and they went to Washington, D.C., and she helped set up a couple of the hospitals there. She also got to meet Abraham Lincoln, and she told him that she was not a commissioned nurse. And at that time, he gave her a commission for the 2nd Army Corps Hospital, and so she was able to go with them to the battles. She was at the Battle of Wilderness, she was at Petersburg. She was at the siege also in Atlanta. So she did see a lot of the fighting that was going on. She was a very outspoken woman, as what her mother would call her, and she would do what she felt was what she wanted to do. My mother would call it strong-willed, because that's what she called me, but it was someone who was going to do what she felt was right for humanity. After the war, she did not sit still. She kept going. She went over to England and got some training in how to help people care for their families. She started the Children's Aid Society in Philadelphia. She also, after the war, she was very concerned about the Afro-American children, and she went to South Carolina and she started a school down there, the Lang School for Afro-American Children, and she was the president of that. She went on to create many other societies for children, for widows, and things like that in the Philadelphia area. She, as I stated, was a very outspoken woman, but she knew when she was tired and she did not have any more energy to do her work. And so she retired in 1914. She left the service and moved back home to Hancock's Bridge. Later on, she moved to Atlantic City with some family members. She passed away in 1924 and is buried in a small town near her hometown in Hancock's Bridge. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Well,
so
that was
much.
wonderful.
It was.
Thank you.
It was wonderful. And I thank you so much for sharing Cornelia Hancock's story through her eyes, but through your eyes. You're a blessing and she was a blessing.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone, and stay tuned for the next one, but really do some research. Look up Cornelia Hancock. Thank you so much. Through their eyes, past and present.